So I'm here with Gordon Laing. We are on the rocks of Dunure Harbour, Scotland, and we are here for our annual Google Plus Euro Photo Walk. This year we're in Scotland, and Gordon Laing, I'm sure you all know him. He's the owner of CameraLabs.com and the co-host of the Twip show All About Gear with Doug Kay. So how's it going, Gordon?
It's really good, Ugo. It's really nice to see you again. This is a trip we do every year. Everyone's welcome. So look for any information on the Euro Photo Walk, and hopefully we'll see you next year. And although it's not the pure focus of the trip, most of the people on this trip are really into long exposure photography. And it's something that I only got into a year or two ago, actually at one of these events. Yeah. So it's been really fun to be put into these situations where you can try out the gear and also speak to experts like Ugo and find out how to do long exposure photography properly.
So what are you shooting now?
Well, behind my beanie, normally I'm wearing the hat, but today the camera's wearing the hat, and I'll explain why in a minute. It's not because it's cold. It's not because it's splashing either, but I do have to watch out for that. I'm shooting with the Fujifilm X-T1, which I really like for its image quality and processing. As you know, if you follow my work, I'm not into post-processing. So I'd like to get the effect I'm after in camera, and the Fujis are very, very good at that with their film simulations. I've got the 10 to 24 ultra-wide zoom on there because, of course, long exposure photography looks great with an ultra-wide angle lens. You need a neutral density filter to soak up as much light as possible so you can have long exposures. I'm doing a 4-minute exposure. That's only possible because I've got a 10-stop neutral density filter on there, in this case made by Lee Filters. And also something called a graduated filter, which darkens a bit of the frame but not the rest. So I've got it darkening the sky but not the sea. That's another popular trick. And the hat is here because most cameras, unfortunately, suffer from light leaks. Certain parts of the body are not quite sealed well enough against light, and you don't notice it on normal exposures, but when you're exposing for 4 minutes or so, sometimes it can come in. And in the case of the Fuji, it comes in when the little door is open on the side with the ports, which is why it's wearing my hat.
So I guess we will see your image later. We will share it when together with the blog post when we share this interview.
And I'm using Trigger Trap, which is a piece of software running on my phone. So the phone is actually acting as a cable release, and it allows you to time bulb exposures and work out exactly how long you want them to be. And that's connected to either a USB port or to the microphone input.
So I saw in your bag you also had another camera. So
Yes.
These days you're not only shooting with a Fuji. Can you tell us a bit about what you're using?
It's all right. Nice. It's okay. Now there's vignetting here. You'll see when we share this picture, maybe Hugo will embed it into the video. We'll show you a version that has vignetting, which means darkening in the corners. The reason for this is that this filter system that I'm using is not wide enough for the coverage of this lens. This is a really wide lens and really should have a massive filter on it. Unfortunately, I don't have a massive filter, so I've got to accept some darkening in the corners. I could zoom in a bit, or I could try and retouch it out afterwards. The reason I don't mind here is that I'm going to crop this into a square for sharing on Instagram probably, and there it doesn't matter what goes on in the corners. The other camera in my bag is a Sony A7R Mark II, 42 megapixel camera. I'm going to be trying some long exposures with that. One of the really cool things about the Sony cameras is they have downloadable apps, so you can extend their capabilities. And one of the apps that's in beta at the time we made this video is called the touchless shutter. Now, most of these cameras have got electronic viewfinders with a little sensor that detects when your eye is up to them, switches off the screen and switches on the viewfinder. But Sony's engineers thought, wait a minute, if we've got a sensor in the camera, why don't we use it for something else? So what they do, when you have the camera set to bulb, rather than needing a cable release or to touch it, you can just wave your hand in front of the viewfinder. You can see how it would work. And that starts the exposure. Wave it again when you're ready to end the exposure.
Then you got to be careful if you put your beanie cap on.
Exactly.
With your beanie cap on top of it, it will stop the exposure.
If a large insect flies past. And unfortunately, what they don't do is display a little stopwatch on the screen, so you still need to time it with your phone or something like that. But it's an app that's in beta, so it's free of charge, and they're trying it out. And I think it's a really innovative use of existing hardware. They didn't need to put anything new into the camera, and it saves us buying accessories and carrying cables and stuff like that.
Absolutely. And when I shoot long exposure, I actually do shoot them less and less just because of all the hassle of setting up the filters and finding the remote in the bag and so on. Having an app in camera
now
would be great.
They even have an app. Sony has an app which simulates a long exposure. So it will actually blur things like, the reason that we're doing a long exposure here by the sea is that the water moves while we're doing our exposure and it blurs, and that gives you that kind of smoky, ethereal effect where a stormy ocean in real life, or an active one, can actually look incredibly smooth and serene. But you can simulate that digitally, and Sony has an app for that as well, although I've not tried it.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Happy shooting, and that's it.
Can I put my hat on?
Sure.
Thank you.